Hey everyone, welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Melissa, and we are sisters. And if you're on YouTube, you see we have a guest.
Yeah, woo! Before we introduce our guests, I do have to say that recently someone was like, why do you always have to tell people you're sisters? And it was one of my children.
Wow, I was like, who is rude to say that?
Don't would say that. It was one of my children. Oh my gosh.
This makes more sense.
Like, well, this is the first time they're listening. They don't know we're sisters, and that changes things. So I just thought that was so funny. I was like, oh, I have to say that was one of my kids.
And it's our tagline. Like, that is now our tagline. So
exactly.
Kids.
Well, if you're not watching YouTube, you have not seen our beautiful guest, Salina. Salina, thanks for being with us.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm using a new word this year. I'm eager to be here. That's my new word.
Eager.
I'm excited all the time.
Yeah, I do too. I say amazing a lot too. That was amazing. Mm-hmm. I need a new word. She did say before we hit record, I've been pining to get into these conversations. And I was like, that is like word of the day toilet paper, like right there. I love it. I love that word.
Conversation. I want to be here. Yeah, this is fun.
So fun.
I think we know a little bit about Salina right off the bat, and she has FOMO.
Well, you know, when you're Salina, like talking to the podcast, like as you're listening to it, you're like talking.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, listen, just give me a mic. I need to get on here with you guys.
Yes. That's amazing.
Well, and
that
Salina,
would be really fun to know how often people talk back to us, because we don't know, of course.
I think it's often based on what I hear from people.
That's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm. So today, I just want to share, not today, but just I want to share how I know Salina. So Salina has her own podcast, and I was asked to be a guest on her podcast, like what, 6 months ago? 9 months ago?
Probably fall sometime. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, for sure, I'm going to have you on my podcast. Like, we had such a great time, like all this stuff. And then she reached out to me and was like, hey girl, did you ever still want to do that? I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, so when I said it, I meant it, but then I didn't add you to my list. Therefore, it doesn't exist. And I was like, I am so thankful that you did that, because I wanted to have her on my podcast, or our podcast. And we had so much fun together. We were like, we are very similar, which is always interesting. I feel like most of my friends are married to my personality, but I don't have a lot of women friends with my personality.
Yeah. And I can't join in on this because I wasn't invited on the podcast.
In all seriousness, you have to know, Melissa, I didn't even know you existed. I was following Rachel, and then I was like, what? We talked about you, and I was like, well, who is this person? I need to
amazing person I need to meet.
Yeah, she was following my Rachel H. Williams ministry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's how we connected.
I'm no longer feeling bad.
Okay, good.
Melissa also has FOMO.
Melissa, we're just going to have you solo on mine. Maybe that'll be like the full circle that we do here.
I like it.
Just kidding.
I like that. I can get on board with that.
I'm totally kidding. So I'm excited because Salina has something she's going to share with us. Like, we are not going to interview her. We don't have any questions. Melissa has no idea that she's going to talk to us about. And the truth is that I'm not even sure. I don't even know that much about it. And so I feel like she's just going to teach all of us, and I'm really excited. So Salina, just like introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do in life? And before we get into our topic.
Yes, I am Salina Johnson. I am, first of all, I love Jesus. I think we should start out with those. That's it. I could just say that and be done. But there's more. I am a wife. We'll be celebrating 25 years this summer, which is crazy. I can't believe it.
I just did 25 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's like a thing, like a feat. Like, you know what I mean?
Quarter of a century.
Yes.
Oh
with each other, compromising the whole time. Like, it's a really beautiful thing. I have two boys who are 12, almost 13, and 11, just turned 11, and they are miracles, and I love them so much. I work in the corporate world. I am an operations manager, and then my kind of side passion, the thing that I feel God's called me to so much, is serving busy women in the area of overwhelm, burnout, that space that I think all of us can resonate with and relate to.
Yeah, I feel like every woman just sat up straighter. Like, I need to hear this.
Like, what is she going to teach us? Yeah.
We're excited.
Yes,
we're ready.
I'm excited too. Yeah. And that's like a really beautiful space. It started out with me and my own deep, dark space of burnout, which we'll talk about. And then, really I started moving my body and taking care of myself. And then that's, God's just, how he gives you one step at a time. And then you find yourself in this calling that, you had no idea you were, first of all, equipped to do. And second of all, designed to do. So that's where I'm at. And I have a podcast, Spinning Plates podcast.
Yeah.
Spinning Plates.
Isn't that a great name?
I love that. I just had a huge visual, obviously, and I love it.
Melissa's a very visual person.
I'm a very visual person.
Yes,
and you just gave me one. I didn't even have to go find it.
Oh, I love that. That makes me so happy. So yeah, that's who I am. Yeah.
All right. And you're going to talk to us today about the power of pause.
Yes. So,
all right, we want to know all things.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you everything, and please ask everything. So I, like I said, I came from a place of, and I'm sure there's so many women who can relate to this, where I was burning the candle at both ends, as my husband would say. And I was, I had everything I'd ever dreamt for, prayed for. I had my boys, I have a husband, I have the house, I have an amazing job, all these beautiful things on the outside, and inside I was struggling. I was struggling with anger, frustration, disappointment, discontentment. Why am I so mad all the time? And I have everything I'd ever, desired. And I was really in a place of not taking care of myself. So that's how it really began, as me getting to the point of, that breaking point where you find yourself like, something's got to give or I'm going to lose my mind. I would wake up just in time to go to work. I would be at my desk all day. I know so many can relate to this. I would eat my lunch at my desk because there's just no time. There's just no time. And I would talk myself down the whole commute home so that I wouldn't bite off the heads of everyone that I love as I walked in the door. And then, 30 seconds later, I'm exactly where I didn't want to be, yelling at them. It didn't work. It didn't work.
You're doing it.
Yeah. I needed Jesus is what was going on. And it was really, it wasn't fun. And so I kind of, I got to this place. I was also having some circulation issues, and, what happens when we don't have time? We don't have time to go to the doctors, moms. Like, we just are too busy. Everyone needs us, and we're not prioritizing. And I kind of.
Can you tell us how long ago this was for you?
This
like what time period are you?
It's like 30 days ago, right?
It was like last week. Exactly.
Perfect. Everyone's listening more.
Yeah, really good.
You're the perfect person to teach us this.
Yeah. So I've learned everything in 7 days, and I'm going to teach you. Yeah.
It's a good question. How long ago was it?
Very good question. It was about, I would say 9 years ago. It was about 9 years ago that
I knew it. I was thinking this had to be about a decade ago. I just can feel that. So, okay, that makes sense.
I also had toddlers in the mix. So, there's just, there's a whole lot that comes with that world. And they were obviously not the problem. I was. And that was probably the biggest thing for me, is just finally realizing through a lot of personal development, which we'll talk about, but like realizing it really wasn't everything else and everyone else that was the problem at all. And that was a pretty stark reality to come to, like, I do have it in me to live with joy and to be nice.
Yeah.
So I kind of one day got mad. I put my feet on the ground and my feet were tingling again, and they had been doing that for like 6 months. And I just had this flash forward image of myself at and I was 38 at the time. So that tells you exactly what age I was. So I'm 45 now. So what was that, 8 years ago? I don't know. I can't do math. It's 8 years ago. That sounds good.
7.
And
Seven.
I...
That sounds good. We'll go with the wrong
I like that kind of math.
Sounds like you, Melissa.
Melissa,
you might be the perfect combination of the two of us, Salina.
We're going to be besties. I told you.
You don't think that math needs to be exact. I don't know whoever said it does, but
does it matter, guys? So I kind of had this flash forward image of myself at 40 even, and then 50 and 60. And I could get emotional even thinking about it. It was so real. And I was like, my kids aren't going to have a mom. Even if I'm physically here, I'm not here. And my husband is losing his wife. Like, I am literally going mad, and I don't, know what to do about it. And so it was kind of in that moment, God shook me. And so what's the first thing you do? You buy a smoothie machine, because
I was going to say a margarita machine. Just kidding. I don't even like margaritas.
We had quit drinking like a year before this, so maybe that's like, but yeah.
That's why you did the smoothie.
Yeah, otherwise that would have been the answer. But I,
Yeah.
I just felt called to be healthier, and I didn't know what that looked like, and I fumbled through it. And, I knew I couldn't go to a gym. I wanted to be with my babies as much as I can, being a full-time working mom. I knew that I couldn't, I needed something that was sustainable. I had some boxes to check, but I also didn't want to do anything. So I didn't know what to do. So anyways, long story short, it led me to what I do today, and is what I help others with, which is like at-home workouts, nutrition that's sustainable, mindset, and really helping people kind of dig their way out of that feeling of overwhelm. And through that, it has, over the years, a lot of personal development. I can't recommend enough always having a good podcast like this one in your ear, or a good book, or reading. 5 minutes a day will change your life. God can use that 5 minutes to completely revamp you over time. And I know that was a huge, because so much of what we struggle with is mindset. So much of it is in our heads. It's not even physical most of the time. And so from that, I created the Power of Pause. But the funny part was, it was just for me to like be sane again. And it wasn't until last year that God really put words to it. And I was like, oh, this is like a tool that other people might be able to use. And it's really taken off and has been valuable to a lot of people. So that's kind of how the Power of Pause has been formed. So you want me to go ahead and jump on into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dive right in.
Okay, good. So I love a good acronym. Like, that serves me well. I like alliterations, acronyms, anything that's going to help me remember these tools. So pause is literally that. It's we're going to go through each letter. And it is, first though, before we do, it's when you get to that state of overwhelm, because I think there's this notion that, now my life's great and I don't have anything that I struggle with, and I'm never overwhelmed and everything's awesome. You just figure out, your problem and then you're good. No, that's like not it at all. Overwhelmed,
because you're still human.
I'm still human. I'm still a sinner. I still make poor choices. I'm, all the things.
Yeah.
And so overwhelm is inevitable. I believe it's going to happen. So it's not stopping the chaos from coming at you. And I have some good examples on this as we talk, but it's not stopping it. It's understanding to recognize it and to flip the script a little bit on what's going on. And so the first thing that I think is important is indicators. So I'd love to hear from you guys, but I know for me, I know I'm getting to that breaking point when I'm snippy. Like, I'm like, ooh, I have patience, none. Like, we're out of patience. And I also know, like, if I'm standing in the pantry and I don't know what I went in there for, like, I just need to shove my face full of something, like sweets typically. Like, I'm like, how did I get in here? Like, it's just stress, right? So I know that. I also know I physically get a tight chest. So if I start to feel like I'm not breathing well, or I'm getting a tight chest, these are like things that are indicators for me that I'm not probably headed the right direction. So what about you guys?
I shut down.
Yeah.
When I start getting overwhelmed, I just become like, everything is difficult. Like everything that's just normal, like getting ready in the morning, or doing my workout, or making breakfast, or making dinner, or doing the dishes, or making my bed. Like those things that you just do kind of without thinking throughout the day, like become like completely impossible for me to do. And so when I start getting to where, so usually I don't wake up and everything's like that. I usually wake up and half of it is, and I'm like, and so I have a little bit of a precursor, like, okay, so I need to back up here. I'm going to be just laying in bed pretty soon.
That's so common too, right? And that
I definitely do the things that you said as well, but I like, everything feels like too much, and then I just want to do nothing, which only makes me feel worse. So I'm like both of you in that way.
Yeah. I think too, if like, I am prone to anxiety, but like also if you're prone to anxiety or depression, it can like kind of start that trend. And if you don't get on top of it, right, if you're not identifying it, it's going to take you down a path that, then it's harder to get out of. So that's like really good to recognize that. And like, so common, like everything feels like a lot. Like,
Wait, did you tell us what the P was? And I missed it.
Gotten there yet. No.
Oh, good, because I was going to write it down in our notes for our
Look,
show
you're
notes,
on
and
the
I was
edge.
like,
Look
wait,
at
I
how I've
missed
got
it.
you on the edge of your seat. Look at that. Look at work. So yeah, so I
All
think
right.
that's what, we fight or flight is a real thing. And I think that we kind of shove it down a lot. We don't really let it guide us into like knowing we need to make some shifts or adjustments. And so I think just being honest with yourself that, you can't do it all on your own. You need a minute to reset, which is what pause is all about. Is really, really important. And, we don't have lions coming at us. We don't, but our body reacts the exact same way.
Yeah.
So, our blood pressure will go up, we'll get feisty, we'll fight back, or we'll flight. We'll go lay down on the couch and put a blanket over our heads, whatever that might be for you. And everyone's so unique too, right? There's a lot that goes on with that. So the power of pause is P. So when you're feeling that way, even starting to feel that way, it's super important that you can do a pause in a minute. You can do a pause over a day, like whatever you need to do. So I love doing it. Like for me, it was always at my desk. I would do this. So P is for pause. It's literally pause and pray. And before you start fixing, because I don't know about you guys, but when I'm in that mode, I start to get hyper productive and try to like power through and am not actually productive, right? I'm like, oh, I just need to do more and do it faster because then that'll make me feel ahead. And that's not healthy. And so pause is like literally.
I am just now learning that from you. No, I'm joking. Like I do that all the time. I know it's not healthy, but I really have not gotten away from it also.
Yeah.
It makes me feel better. I'm like, well, now I'm productive. All is well.
Yes. And I also don't want anyone to, get it twisted. There are moments when you do as a mom, as a employee, as a leader, like there are moments when you need to just buckle down, power through for a minute. Like that is true.
Right.
Of course.
But we cannot sustain that every day and every time we feel overwhelmed. That's not healthy, right? And so pausing and praying is like literally stopping and pushing the pause button, taking a deep breath. I love when I'm teaching people this, or if I'm speaking in front of a group, we'll do like a meditation or like a breathing exercise. Like I believe God has designed our bodies in a way to regulate ourselves in those moments of really trauma. You're headed towards an intense situation. And so like connecting with your breath and like remembering and to invite him in before you start deciding what needs to happen next, like asking God to calm you and to, lay it at his feet and to ask him to take it from you and to help you. Because as we go through the rest of this, there'll be some steps and like help him guide you through these steps and that you're not just like on your own. And I think that we have a tendency as busy women to kind of like, oh, I can do this, I can do it more. And we put everything in a bucket. We just like, we call it at our house, we call it and another thing, because it's like, you're upset about this over here. And another thing, I need you to take the laundry, and put it in the like, we just go kind of crazy. And so like having him be a part of the process of just like, like, I'm just going to stop for a second and I'm going to breathe. And I'm going to remember who I am in Jesus, that I am not the master of all this. I am not actually in control of probably 75% of what's going on. And, just taking a minute. So that's pause and pray.
Well, so pausing and praying is something that I feel like I've done decent for quite a while. And every single time what God shows me immediately is, like you said, there are no lions coming. There's nobody breaking into my house. There's no one stealing my children. There's no one. It's like, I just have to do the dishes and I just need to go to the grocery store. And like, it's like normal, like 90% of the time, there's nothing actually big happening. Yeah. I'm just not in the place to handle it well.
Yes.
And so it just brings clarity to like, and chill, Melissa. Like, this is so not the end of the world.
Yeah. Like I picture God being like, calm down. That's like I hear there's the, the scripture, be still and know. Like I heard something a long time ago where it was phrased differently. And I wish I was you, Rachel, sometimes where I could like remember all those key things I've learned in scripture. But what I do know, my takeaway, I can remember my takeaway, which is that, he is like, be still. Like that is, he's not saying like, be still.
Literally.
No, he's like, knock it off.
Enough.
Knock it off.
Knock it off.
So that's pause and pray. And then A is, I love it, probably, I think one of the ones that's going to have you move forward with the healthiest mindset, which is agency. So you have control over a certain number of things. You do not have control over everything that's being tossed at you or like you're taking on, right? And so I always think of it as like you have control over things you have control over. So, what are those things? Our response, making ourselves pause. Like we have control over that. We have control over our reaction to people. We have control over what we do next. Like we have control over so much. And then there's the things we don't, right? So I think then there's the influence space. Like I don't have control over my children. I really don't. I mean, they're getting into tweenie and we're, it's a whole, it's a new energy in the house. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We have all that energy in our house.
Yes.
So, like, whereas before, maybe I had control over their relationships or their friendships as a very young person. I don't. Now I get to coach them and have influence and pray for them. And there's people in my work life where I can't be at their desk having them do the things, but I have influence over what my suggestions are, and I have some control over that. I can control how I'm presenting myself and showing up. And then there's the spot we hate, which is the things we don't have control over. You do not have control over somebody else's response. You don't have control over their actions. You don't have control over many times circumstances you have no control over. This is what it is. And we're going to have to embrace it and go with it. So that's reminding myself. I used to do this exercise. And if you're watching on YouTube, you'll enjoy it, I'm sure. But I used to do this thing where I was like, when I would be like in the heat of the moment and the most stressed out, I would like take my fingers and I'd be like, so cheesy, but I'd be like, I have control over this space. Like I can make it big, I can make it small. Like, and sometimes you have to get to that micro level of like, stop trying to change the whole world. That's God's job. Like just be in control of yourself. Like stop it again. Be still and chill. So
I like that.
How do you define the word agency? Like I don't know that word.
Like where did that word come from? As the recognizing what we can and cannot control.
Agency is like how for me what I have learned it to be is because God gave me the word, which is really weird because it's not one I used a lot prior to this, which I think is a total God thing, right? When he's like, and use this word, I'm like looking it up,
I don't know that word.
Sure. It's really how you represent yourself, how you're showing up in the world, how you're managing yourself. And so how are you, if you think of an agency, that's what they do, right? They represent people and they manage people. And it's like, you have that for yourself. Like you have a voice and you need to use it with wisdom and you need to use it with care and you need to be thoughtful and you need to, for me, this comes back to mindset and movement is like, I need to do the things in my day that are going to put me in the best frame of my headspace, right? Like I need to move my body every day. I have control over that. That's something I get to do and I have agency over. So that's how I look at agency. Yeah. Good question.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And then U is understand what's next. So this is probably my favorite because I'm a doer. I get from both of you. You're probably doers too. But I love being able now to, I've breathed, I've paused. I know I've reminded myself what I have control over. And now I need to do something because I am somebody who is like loves to be productive. Right. And so understanding what next is a process I go through of brain dump, basically. So what happens to me, and we mentioned it before, was buckets. So I will put everything, we just start taking on everything. Like I need to flip the laundry and I need to make that doctor's appointment. When we're feeling out of control, all of a sudden I don't know about you, but for me, I think I'm going to lose control of everything. So I start like grasping, like I need to get control of my life. And so this bucket though is not healthy because what do you do first? What actually is priority? What's aligned with your current goals or agenda? What does your family really need from you? What is the, top on the list? So understanding what next. And I offer this brain dump exercise that is really that you just spew all the things that are in your head. You don't put them in order. You don't try to manage them right then. You don't go and make the appointments. You just put everything in your head. I do this every day. It has changed my life. So I strongly recommend if you're somebody who's losing it, this is good. So, just you're just like
98% of our listeners.
Me too, by the way, just yesterday. So it's okay. But listing everything. And I think giving yourself permission to not have it figured out yet, right? So you're just listing it all down. And then I go through this do, drop, delegate process, which is what are the things that I have to do, like are critical to the livelihood of our lives, like that it's on my list, it's important, I have to do it. And you have to have a really critical eye with this, because I will tell you, my good example is like laundry. You know, like there are moments in life when the laundry is not the priority. It's bugging you,
Right.
and it's on the list, and it would make you feel like you've accomplished something, but it isn't for you to do in that moment. And so, you know,
You can get through that day without doing laundry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. If everyone's out of underwear, now it's the priority.
Right.
Yes. And when you're in this moment of pause too, you've come in with an energy where you're losing control. So, you know, it's okay to set aside the things that are not going to serve you in that moment or be the big game changer. Like I'm going to tell you, your kids don't even know you haven't done the laundry. No one knows but you. It's just you. Like you're the only one stressed out about it. So, you know, going through.
And if you close the laundry room door, no one could even see.
That was my trick.
I'm very good at leaving my laundry room door open, so it reminds me. And then I'm like, but I can just close it. I don't have. Melissa can't. She took her laundry room door
took
off.
my laundry door off.
Darn it.
But her
It's
door, her
upstairs.
laundry room is so cute.
Oh, love that.
And I don't do my children's laundry. That's on them. So
Right. Well, and that's where the delegate comes. I love that. So that is a form of delegation.
Yeah.
I think I work with this a lot at work, is that there is this impression that delegation is negative, or that you're putting your work on somebody, or that you're asking someone to do something. And it is just simply not. I mean, what can you outsource, and what's important?
Right. It's sharing the load.
It is. It is. I also think, like, for my kids, and, you know, at work, we talk about this a lot too, is like, it is empowering other people to learn and do for themselves. And, you know, over time, that's critical. I want them to be able to go off to college and know how to do their laundry. Like, that's an actual skill we should have. And so, you know, instead of it being something that you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to ask my husband to do that or whatnot. A good example is we did, Tuesday nights, my son now goes to youth group. That's new. And so Tuesdays are kind of packed, right? So I'm getting off work. We're getting everyone fed, getting him off to youth group. And that is a shift. And so I told my husband, I was like, you know, what would be amazing is if just Tuesdays you did dinner. Like this, that if it was just like you're already at home, and he gets off earlier, and that would be like, and it was so easy, and it was just this big weight lifted of, instead of me trying to figure it out, it was partnering up with people on things. So I also think, like, you know, Instacart's that's delegating, guys. Like, you don't have to go to the grocery store, right? So what are those things that you can relieve a little bit? My other trick.
Well, sorry.
No,
go ahead. Well, last night, so my husband works out of town, and he was out of town all last week. And then now he's out of town, like, basically 3 days this week. And then he's out of town again next week. Right. And it was my turn to host book club. I do it once a year. And of course, how could I have known it was going to be this kind of a month where we've had constant visitors and he's been out of town so much. And so I was like, okay, well, I just have to plan well. And, you know, I want my house to look nice because it's a neighborhood book club. So everyone likes to see each other's houses. And it's been a year since I've hosted. So I have new people who've joined and they're like, oh, I want to see your house. And so it's like, I want my house to look good. I want the food, you know, the outside food and drinks and all that. And so my kids were home, and here I am hosting book club in my backyard. And I told my daughter, I was like, your chore for the night, instead of what you were going to do, is getting your 6-year-old brother to bed.
Yeah, that's great.
Had her set the alarms for what time to do certain things. And never once did she come out. Never once did he come out. And he was asleep by the time book club was done. And then book club was done and people were just mingling. Right. And that's fine. But it's 9:30 at night. This is not a problem for me, but I've got a bunch of food outside that needs to come in and get put away. And I just called all my 3 children who were awake and was like, I need you guys to start bringing this in and packaging it up.
I love that.
And so I'm sitting there chatting, and never once were they like, this is your party. Because this is normal to them that hey, I need help here.
Yep.
I'm the only parent. I'm the only adult here. I need your help. And my friends they all have almost all of them have younger kids. No, all of them have younger kids in this book club. And they were like, what?
How did you do that?
I was like, well, we just have been delegating. I mean, we've been alone a lot. I mean, even when my husband didn't work out of town, he still worked 4 straight days of 13, 14-hour shifts. And so it was we're used to this. And if I never delegated, I would absolutely be on
drowning.
Like
Yeah.
I'd be drowning. I could never host something like a book club, period, let alone on a night when I was home alone with my kids. And so
amazing.
that delegation is huge. And now I have kids who know how to come and like clean up, and they got to eat like all the food they wanted. Like there was like cupcakes and chips and queso, you know, and I was like, this was a good thing for them too. And I saw that when my oldest was like 3, I saw that in another family and was like, she is sitting here having a conversation after dinner and her kids are like sweeping the floor and putting things away. And we're not to that extent, but I was like, I want that in my family. And that only comes from delegation. And it's how we can all function well. And I can be the best mom for them because I'm not so burnt out.
That's exactly right. And that is, as you were talking, I was like, and also you probably were able to enjoy yourself. And, you know, our family and friends and the people we're around need the best version of us. If we're not doing these steps, we're not showing up as our best self. So, and then,
and my kids wanted to hang out afterwards, and they were loud and giggly and they were silly, and I could do that with them because we had put everything away, and it was like, okay, now I have space to like hang out with you guys, even though I want you to go to bed, because why are you still all awake?
But
still,
that's a different issue.
Go to bed.
It's a different issue.
So it's do, delegate, and drop. So there are things on your list that if you have something you've carried over every brain dump, it's on the list. I'm just going to challenge you to like, does it even need to be on the list? Because I've had things that I thought, if it's not important for me to ever get it up to the do category and it's been sitting there for 4 weeks on this list, maybe it's not really something that I'm going to spend time doing. So dropping is important too.
You don't need it in your brain.
Yes. I don't. Get it out. Get it out.
Okay. I'm excited. What's S?
S is set expectations, which is exactly what it sounds like. And it's with yourself and with others. And I think I've thought about this a lot. I think this is the key for me personally. When I started communicating what was actually going on inside of me, when I would start to come out of this, understand what's next, and then tell people, hey, you know, for example, email is a good example. So email's coming at you. It's coming at you fast and furious. You're trying to figure it out. If you work in the corporate world, you know, you can't control all of these emails that are coming in, and you don't, you know, you're not at the other person's desk telling, don't send it at this hour. Like, I'm going to be busy. That's not how it works. Your job is to triage that, right? And to go through and figure out where to put things. And I think that it's important, like if you have something that someone's asked you, often they don't give you a deadline or are clear with their communication. So determining what is best for your schedule and saying back to them, hey, I'm going to have time on Monday to do this. Does that work for you? I have it every time. They're like, yeah, that's great. And then, you know, we do this thing where we put this pressure on ourselves to do it now, and like schedule your time out. Yeah. Take the time to do that. And it will be a game changer for you. Yeah.
I love that.
And then, and with yourself too. So if you say you're going to do something, give yourself a timeline and do it at that timeline. Just do it, because you'll feel good once you get it done.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is E, which is energy. And it's not woo-woo energy, but it is when you come into
woo-woo.
Yeah.
Is that what she said? Woo-woo? Yeah. I don't know what woo-woo energy is. Do you mean like woo?
There's a lot of talk in the world, a lot of, you know, all about energy and all this kind of stuff. But I believe from a biblical standpoint, God calls us to take our thoughts captive. And I think that we are, in doing so, it's so that we can go through this whole process and then come back to him and leave the process better, right? Like more in line with him, more centered and more grounded. And so energy for me is, I don't want to come into a moment of pause and then leave the exact same way, stressed out, overwhelmed, you know, like that's not the point, right? And so I encourage people, if you're still feeling that way, I say go back to the beginning and do it again. And I've had to do that sometimes 3 times. Okay, let's do this again. You know, if you get into an anxiety loop, it's hard sometimes to snap out of that. So really taking that time to ask yourself, when I show up now with my family, my friends, my workplace, am I showing up different in this moment than I was 10 minutes ago or whatever the time period is? Right. And the answer should be, your energy should be better. You should be in a more positive mindset. You should be in a healthier state of mind, and you should be more fun to be around. Like, if we're honest, that like, people should like to be around you again. Yeah. So that's pause in a nutshell.
That's so true.
So
having a better energy.
I have a question for you, because I could imagine people being like, this sounds great, but I don't have time, which I know is kind of how you started this. That's often the culprit to why we're here. So on average, I mean, I know you said sometimes you have to go through the process again, but like, I mean, I would imagine this can be like a 5-10 minute thing. Like it's not like a 3-hour thing, right? Like how long does it normally take you to go through all of the letters?
For me, I usually do I'll do a minute of breath work, which is just, I love doing box breath. If you haven't done that, it helps me a lot, where, you're in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And you just do that 3-4 times. That's like, it could take under a minute. And my Instagram, I have a couple of those that I've thrown in the mix, but it, really that piece is just getting your mind right. And then the longest part of the process is really the understanding what's next, which is the brain dump exercise. And that takes me under 5 minutes. So yeah, it's a great question. I think sometimes too, you don't have to do a full brain dump. Sometimes you just know the top 5 things that are like stirring around in your mind, and you're just going to quickly decide which one's priority, right? So there's been times at my desk where it's a 2-minute from beginning to end. I'm like, okay, pause. Like, let's take a deep breath. Let's get ourselves right. So I agree. And then sometimes you need like a mom half day to like just go walk in the woods somewhere, or like, and that could be a part of the process the whole time. So yeah, it's a good question.
Well, I know that there are some super real rule followers out there, and they're like, want to do it right, quote unquote, right. And what I'm hearing you say is really, there's not a right or wrong way. It's just a guide to help you focus and center yourself on God and on what's priority, and not let yourself drown in in unnecessary things.
Taking control.
Well, hearing what you're saying reminds me of when it's like, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Like this process is for us.
Yes.
Like we don't live for this process. This process is designed to help us come out better. Like you said, more centered, more like focused on God, and just like nicer to our families and the people around us. And so, if you're like, oh, I have to do this, it's like Melissa saying, no, this process is for you. It's for us.
Well, and if any of you like to have tangible reminders, there is literally, I own a P.A.U.S.E necklace that is by Brian Anthony, I believe. My friend CJ gave it to a group of us a few years ago for this exact purpose, like to remember to pause. And and it literally just has a little pause button on it. People are always like, is that an 11? I'm like, no, it's a pause.
Oh, it's a pause sign.
Like
so it looks like an 11, not P-A-U-S-E.
Correct. It doesn't say the word. It's a simple pause, like on a,
Oh, that's funny. I've never seen that necklace.
Branding decals with a pause, like decals with a pause symbol on it that go on your water bottle or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Thank you so much for taking time to share all this with us. And we're just wondering, do you have like a challenge for our listener, or is it just like try it once and see how it goes? Like
I would say try it for sure. I think the challenge I would give everyone is to do a brain dump. Maybe you're not ready to do like the pause and the agency and the set but just like get what's in your head out onto paper. And I have my website, which I'm sure we could put in the show notes, but I have a free ultimate brain dump guide, and it just walks them through that whole process of the brain dump exercise, and gives a little bit more background on pause. And it's been helpful to a lot of people. So that's what I would challenge people to go grab that.
What is your website, Salina?
It's Salina it's Salina Johnson, JOHNSON speaks.com. SPEAKS.
Okay.
And it looks like your podcast is Spinning Plates Podcast.
That's right. Yep.
Correct. Yep. So I was looking for it when she was talking, and there's actually a few different, I was just on Spotify, and a few different spinning plate type things came up. So it's Spinning Plate Podcast, and then it says Salina Johnson. Yep. So make sure you get the right one.
And on Instagram, it's Mrs.
Yeah. So my Instagram is
Salina.Johnson.
Yep. Mrs.Salina.
Which we will put in the show notes. So.
Yeah.
And we'll tag you when we release this. We'll tag you in it so people can find you.
Thank you for joining us. This was really fun.
It
was really good stuff.
Here. This has been a delight. And I knew getting to visit with you guys. We'll just have coffee regularly. Just without
exactly.
And I need to have both of you,
thank you so much, Salina,
back on the pod to talk about your podcast. So we're gonna just keep doing this.
That's so funny. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Head over and check out Salina's podcast, her website, her Instagram, all those things. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye.
You might feel that your life is a mess, but don't feel bad. Ours is too, but we own a microphone and we have no shame. That's why we'll talk about how our life is a mess nonetheless. That's the name of our podcast.